Mike McCool here with the Royal Examiner. I'm over at the County Registrar's office and voter registration. That is a big long title.
Office of Election and Voter Registration.
That's right, Office of Elections. With me is Carol Tobin. She is our registrar with Warren County. So we wanted to talk to her today just about elections in general. And the first election coming up is the Democratic primary next week after next?
It's the 11th of June,
11th
which is
of
week
June.
after next week.
All right, well tell us what's all that about?
Well, that is the Democratic primary for the House of Delegates for the 18th District. We are broken down to 3 House of Delegates
Right,
districts.
we got 3 representatives.
Right,
yes.
we do in Warren County, and we actually have some split precincts that have splits in them. They might have different delegates in that precinct. But for this election, we have the 18th House, and it's only 4 precincts involved, and those are Happy Creek, Linden, Shenandoah, East Shenandoah, and South River precincts. So,
right.
Yeah.
So this is just for the Democratic. So there's 2 people on the ballot, both Democrats running like a primary to see who is going to go in the general against the Republican or independents as they come forth.
As they come, yes.
So a very few people are going to see this in the county. So, but if you do show up to the polls and they're what's all this primary stuff, you know, and most people we want to make aware of what's going on.
Certainly.
So then we have the next is the general election. When is our cutoff date for candidates?
For candidates on the regular schedule, it's June the 11th at 7 p.m. That's actually the primary election day.
Right.
They have until that time to get their documents in for the regular November general election. Now, if there's a special election, that may affect certain things, but we don't know of any specials at this time.
Well, we know one's coming. We just don't know when it's going to come.
We just don't have an order.
In fact, there could be several special elections.
It's possible.
Because we've had some of our constitutional office holders now been selected or pre-selected to go into a judgeship.
Right.
That's going to open up their offices. I think we discussed this earlier. We can't really even know if there's going to be an election until they've actually taken their office. Is that correct?
Well, that's correct. Plus, we have to have an order for an election, a special election. No one can apply for anything until we actually have that order, and that's been documented.
And where does that come from? The court?
The court, the actual circuit court.
So they'll send you an order, and then you'll get the paperwork going.
And then the state will have to receive that. I'll have to receive it, and they'll actually have to set the election up before I can even accept a document.
Right. Then the people can come and get their packets and get their signatures and get on the ballot.
Right.
Now, is there any requirement? Because people have thrown out this a date in August.
Well, you mean if there's a special?
We're talking about the mayor special election. Since they supposedly will be sending this order any day. We'll get into the court.
And yes, they do have a longer period of time because they have a shorter, window.
Right.
Probably the middle of August. If I had to guess the timeline, it would maybe be on the 16th of August of 2019.
Right.
But until I see, get all the information. But
they would still be able to have time then to get onto the ballot on the November. That would give them the time. They would have to have their packet and everything turned in by the middle of August, somewhere, depending on the date.
Depending on whether they're selected by a party, nominated by a party, or if they're running as an independent.
Right. So we still only need the 125 votes on the ballot. Now, I thought since this is a town election, and this is supposed to be a nonpartisan, would they still be able to do a partisan nominee in the town?
No, they
cannot. So they're all basically technically independent?
Right. They have to run nonpartisan, and they have to get certified by collecting 125 qualifying signatures.
Right.
That means they still have to get more signatures because not all of them will
I remember that when I ran, she called me on the phone and said, you need another 10 signatures.
It happens.
It does happen. And people don't know where they live.
Right.
Because they all have a Front Royal address. And they all think they live in Front Royal, and they live in Linden and Shenandoah Farms, and
Exactly.
And
of course, sometimes people don't realize that what we have on record is what stands, and they may have moved and forgot to change their
Yeah,
address
I'm
with us,
sure
and I
that
can't
happens.
say that that's the person if they have a different address. There's lots of, involvement, but it's.
I know how it is hard to keep up a mailing list. I can imagine what yours looks like.
Yeah, we stay very busy
I can
here.
remember, when I got my list when I'm running for an office, and you're wondering, they ask your name and address when you walk to the polls, and I'm just wondering, how does the list get so messed up in such a short period of time? So I can imagine what you go through.
It changes every day
Oh, yeah.
because people, are in and out of doing, they're in DMV, they're changing their address.
Oh, yeah.
So we get information all types of ways, electronic, by mail, walk-in. So things change every day.
Oh, yeah, it keeps you and Pam busy, doesn't it?
Very busy. We have lots of responsibility.
You do, and I think you're in your new office now
Oh,
over
it's
here.
wonderful.
We still call this, I guess, the 15th Street School,
Right.
but what's the proper name now? If there's a name to it, I don't
Well,
know.
it's the Health and Human Services Complex.
Right.
But we're on the opposite
Yeah,
side.
now when you come over here to see her, don't read the sign. Just come around to the right-hand side of the building and go down by the track because the signage is terrible.
We have.
This is a plug to get you better signage.
Thank you very much. We do have a banner on.
I've seen that.
And we have certainly asked for more signage. It's just taking time.
It will take time, and it's coming along. But they've really made a beautiful job out of remodeling the building over
It is
here,
nice.
and the offices I've been into, and I'm glad to see you have a little more space. I know you were really crammed over at the other building.
It was hard to do everything we
All you had was
to.
file cabinets. I mean,
Right.
The paper you have to keep
Yeah.
track of. So let's talk just a quick thing about now. We're going to have some people running. We have no town election. We have this mayor thing. That's a special
Right.
election. But we have the county election.
Right.
And
we have the state senate, the House of
That's right,
Delegates.
that's right.
We have 3, seats in the House of Delegates. We have all the constitutional offices. So that's quite a few
That is
offices.
quite. We have
on
the sheriff and the treasurer and the commissioner of revenue,
Commonwealth's
Commonwealth
attorney.
attorney, and then
And
we've got the 3 supervisor
Right,
seats.
3
that are
supervisors
coming
and
up.
the school board.
Oh, and that's right. The school board will
Yeah.
have how many on the school board?
3. It's the same. It's the staggered terms, and they each have 3. The same districts
Right.
are running.
Right. Oh,
each
is it the
time.
same as the
It's the
county's
same,
district?
right,
So South River is
exactly.
running.
Right.
Oh,
It's
okay.
the same, and then when the other 2 run, that would be Happy Creek and Fork District,
Right,
and they
right.
ran the last 2 years ago.
I've only been here 40 years, and I'm just now discovering that they actually do it that.
Yeah.
So you're just a vast wealth of information,
I
Carol.
know. Anytime.
So let's talk about your retirement.
No, we're not talking
we're not going to
about
talk
that.
about that. All right, you've been here ever since I've been here. That's why I was just wondering. You've been here a long time, and it's always good to have people in jobs a long time. And you do keep a low profile, and you do a great job because
Thank
I've
you.
worked with Carol in a couple elections, and I know you're very helpful when you come here. You lay the law down, but you're very helpful
It's
with
very
people.
specific,
Yeah.
the law is very specific, and we want everybody that wants to get on the ballot to get on the ballot. That's what we're here for, to try
Sure.
to help.
Let's go back to that special election because there was some question at the last town council meeting. Of course, I know you haven't got the order yet, so you can't really say, but I was looking at the code, and so just clarify if I'm wrong in this, is that when the election is November 5th, 8th, November 5th, so the election then will be certified by the Board of Elections that all the votes were counted, you have provisional votes, etc., and people have an opportunity. You talking about that before we started. Explain that provisional vote thing, because a lot of people say, well, they wouldn't let me vote. You don't really do that anymore, do you? Everybody that walks up to the door?
Well, there are certain reasons that they could qualify. For example, if they really feel that they should be registered in that precinct, then they will be offered a provisional ballot. If they went to DMV and they think that their address should have been changed, they'll be offered a provisional ballot. Now, if they're still registered in another locality, we obviously know that something didn't get changed.
Right.
And so the problem with that is if they vote here, their ballot's probably not going to be counted.
Right, because they could have voted in the other.
Right. They could have possibly voted if it hadn't been too long that they moved.
Right.
They could have gone back to their other locality and voted. Now, provisional for ID only is, if they don't have the qualifying ID, a photo ID when they come to vote, then they're offered a provisional. and they have until Friday at noon, which is 3 days,
Right.
to get the actual photo ID in, and that when they go to the polls, it has to be the original document, but when they can send in a document that's a photocopy of a document for photo ID, to make sure they meet that timeline to get that ballot counted. But we can also make photo ID for voting purposes only. If someone doesn't have photo ID and wants to go vote, we can create one for them. It'll be a temporary until the state actually mails one to them, but we have that function here.
That's great. That's great. So hypothetically, anytime after that Friday, you could certify the election. The person still, the state code says they have to be qualified. What's that mean?
That means it has to be, you mean for the...
But the person that won the election.
ID or,
No, the person that won the
That
election.
means that we have to certify them, and then they have to go to be certified by the state. They go through, we certify local candidates, but the state candidates and all would have to go through the state certification.
Right.
Even our candidates would go, they would make sure that our abstracts and everything are correct. And then once we have all of the certification done, then we can create the certificates of election for the candidates, because the court would require that for them to actually be sworn in.
Right. And all this normally happens within 30 days.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So basically, typically in a town election, we don't have to quite go through as many steps. Time frames is shorter. So it's possible someone like our mayor wouldn't wait till January 1st to assume office.
Well, yeah. Well, a special election is different than a regular.
A regular election, they always start in January.
Yes. Special election, they have to take office within 30 days of the election.
Right.
So they would have to
Raise their right hand.
Right, and be sworn by the judge.
Right.
To take office. And
financial responsibility
if you fall under Campaign Finance Act, and mostly all of our county offices would, state and federal.
Sure.
The town does not, unless it would be by ordinance, because we have a population of under 25,000 in town.
Right.
So they don't fall under campaign finance laws. So,
but I do know they have, because I've always had to fill one out. So
you have, for county
in the town. They require you to fill one out.
That's probably a statement of economic interest.
That's the one I'm talking about.
The financial part is the campaign finance.
Right. Oh,
part.
they got me on that a couple of times. Fill out, boy. You got to watch them dates, don't you? You got to, right?
It's very, and it's unforgiving.
And it changes.
Yes.
It's moving.
But the closer you get to the election,
faster it is together. Yeah, it is closer together.
And it's unforgiving. We do not have options to not, penalize.
Oh, I know. I got a $100 fine, so missed it by 1 day.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, missed it by 1 day, and $100. Yeah. But you learn that.
Well, and it goes into the county general fund.
Oh yeah,
so
they get rich off me.
I don't think they really do.
No, they didn't. So what I was trying to get to was, so whoever is elected mayor in this special election will assume office before January 1st.
Yes,
that's all I wanted to know.
Yes.
So we can have a mayor sooner.
Within 30 days.
Because I know that they were talking at the council meeting, oh no, it's going to be January 1st, and I pulled the state code out, but I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV, but I try to be a jailhouse lawyer,
Well, we can be informed.
That's right, we're informed. That's what I'm going to say. But I'm informed. That's a good idea. So, registering to vote for the special election. Is it like the same rules, 30 days before, 10 days?
Well, the special election, if it's held
on November
it would be the same as our...
And when is the cutoff for registration?
Well, I didn't have that as far as the November election, but we've already passed it for the primary.
Oh, I'm talking about for people that want to vote in the election in November. When is the last time they can register to vote?
It's probably around, I want to say October 15th, 16th, but I don't have it right in front of me. But we don't have it out there. Yeah, it's actually about 21 days prior to the election, 28 days prior.
So candidates need to get out and really make sure their people are registered to vote.
Yeah.
Because we know that some of these elections, one vote
makes a difference.
Makes a huge difference. I know that. I can remember you always read those stories how they lost by one vote and they forgot to vote themselves, and and that does happen.
Well, it does. It's amazing the recounts that we've seen, not necessarily in our locality but in other counties across the state and everything where one vote does make a
Yeah,
difference.
I think something in Rappahannock County
Yeah.
happened like that, just a few votes, or maybe even one vote
And I
happens.
think the race in Luray was one off, and it remained the same when
Right.
the recount was
Right.
happened. That's
Well-
been a number of years
Well, I
ago.
think in our delegates, didn't they have to flip a coin to see which way the?
If there's a tie vote, I guess they, if they'll go through a recount, but.
Yeah, they flip a coin and say, well, the Republicans are going to take over, or the Democrats. Flip a coin, and we'll see what happens.
Well, that's how they get to place them on the ballot.
Yeah,
To-
yeah.
They draw lots to determine, but
Man,
it's
you
an
know,
interesting.
that drawing lots is a long, that's a biblical term. We're going to draw lots. All right. Is there anything else you want to tell us about voting and registering and elections?
Well, the primary with the 4 precincts, we've been posting those on our website and everything so that they know which precincts are going to have a primary election.
And we'll put that in the story again.
Right,
And
and
put
I'll
links
give you
to,
information.
and we'll put all that in there to
that.
make sure people know what's going on and when it is.
And the last day to request an absentee ballot by mail is next Tuesday, which is the 4th of June.
And that's for this primary.
That's for just this primary. And then the last day to request a ballot in person or vote in person is the Saturday before the election, which would be June the 8th.
Okay. How about now let's move up to the general election. What's the kind of time frame can they get on that for, if people know they're going to be gone, they still can vote. They can just either
Right.
vote early or vote by absentee ballot.
We always start absentee voting 45 days out from the election.
Okay.
It's usually around the 21st week of September.
Right.
I'd have to look at the calendar
Sure.
to see the exact, but it's usually around 24th, 25th of September. We start absentee voting by mail, in person. They can come in up until the Saturday before and vote in person. For a general election, we're open the 2 Saturdays before the election. And then the last day to request a ballot before the election is the Tuesday before if you want it mailed to you, because otherwise you don't have time to turn it around.
Right. I always was amazed with this early voting. And sometimes I've heard that's backfired. I noticed I was watching something in Florida. Everybody already voted early. Then the candidates changed or something. You know what I mean?
Well, things like that.
Or things happen,
yeah.
or the candidate sticks his foot in his mouth and people change their mind. Well, they've already voted.
Well, we had an instance similar years ago where a candidate withdrew and people
Right.
had already absentee voted,
Right.
and then they wanted to change
Change
their
their
vote.
vote.
Well, once you've cast your ballot, it's too late.
It's locked in stone, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. But you never know those kind of things. That's
Right.
just one of those things that happen.
But every vote does count.
Every vote counts.
That's the message we want to get out. Every vote does count. Carol, it's so nice talking to you. You're always so helpful. We'll put your phone number and your email address
Certainly.
and your website on the story. Make sure people, if they need to reach out to
Right.
you and
We
and
want
do that.
people to call if they have questions. They don't have to wait till election day if they
Right.
don't know where their precinct is, or if they don't know which 4 of these precincts are. If they're in the 18th, they may not even know which district they're
Exactly.
in. It's on their voter card, but they might not know exactly where that is.
Who knows where that is, right?
But they can call us and we will let them know where they go to vote and what precinct they're in, and if they're qualified, if it's their election this
Right,
time.
right. Well, again, thanks so much for
You're
speaking
welcome.
with us, and I really appreciate it.
I appreciate your getting the information.
Thank you.